Have you ever held a coin so ordinary, so seemingly insignificant, that it could slip through your fingers without a second thought? Yet in truth it might be worth a fortune? Imagine finding an Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin from 1968. A coin with no mint mark at all. Just one small absence of a letter, one missing symbol, turning, a simple piece of copper into a numismatic legend whispered about in collector circles across America. That's the mystery of the 1968 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent coin. A coin that in some rare cases could command values brushing against $1 million. How can that be? What secret lies hidden beneath the copper sheen of an everyday cent? Let's unfold the story. In 1968, America was changing. The Vietnam War raged overseas. Martin Luther King Jr. had been assassinated only months before. The coinage of the United States reflected a country trying to hold itself together, steady, familiar, dependable. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of the president's birth, had become a constant companion of American life. But behind the minting machines of Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, subtle transitions were taking place. The San Francisco Mint had begun producing proof coins, highly polished specimens intended not for circulation but for collectors. Denver carried the load of most general coinage, leaving Philadelphia to handle its own share quietly. Normally, coins from Philadelphia bore no mint mark, a long-standing tradition. But by the late 1960s, that absence began to blur into confusion. In 1968, the San Francisco Mint was assigned to strike proof coins, and for the first time since 1942, those proof coins did carry the S mint mark. Meanwhile, circulation coins without any mint mark came only from Philadelphia. So why, then, does a 1968 1-cent coin without a mint mark create such buzz? Why do collectors whisper its name in online forums, auction houses, and private meetings? Because among those millions of ordinary Philadelphia cents, a handful might not be ordinary at all. There's a saying in numismatics: the smallest details hide the largest fortunes. In the case of the 1968 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent coin, that missing mark may not be the story. It's the metal, the strike, the die, and the imperfection that define it. A rare few were struck from proof dies intended for San Francisco coins, but for reasons lost to history, these dies ended up producing circulation coins. That means a handful of 1968 1-cents were struck with the mirror-like finish of a proof coin, but without the S mint mark that should have been there. When one of these surfaced at auction, seasoned collectors stopped in their tracks. The luster was unlike anything seen on a standard Philadelphia strike. The details, sharp, crisp, reflective, told a story of a minting process gone subtly astray. And when two such coins appeared, experts began whispering a single thrilling word: error. But not all errors are equal. In the coin world, there are common mistakes: off-center strikes, double dies, clipped planchets. Then there are legendary ones, the kind that make investors pause and historians raise their brows. The 1968 no-mint mark proof-struck Lincoln cent belongs to that latter category. Why does this matter to collectors today? Because rarity is only half the equation. The other half is timing. The numismatic market, like the stock market, moves in waves of sentiment. When the pandemic hit, collectors turned to tangible assets: gold, silver, and yes, rare coins. Prices soared. Then came the younger generation, hungry for history they could hold in their hands. Suddenly, coins that had languished in drawers began emerging on eBay, at estate sales, and in dusty cigar boxes across the country. Now, in 2025, the market for Lincoln cents, particularly rare variants from the 1960s and 1970s, is hotter than ever. One well-preserved 1969S double-die obverse recently crossed 6 figures at auction. Another 1970S small-date proof broke previous records. So when whispers of a 1968 no-mint mark cent struck with proof dies circulate, investors pay attention. And that's how we arrive at the staggering modern valuation: nearly $1 million for the right specimen. But let's step back. How can you tell if your 1968 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin is the one? First, examine the surface. Ordinary coins from Philadelphia that year have a dull, satin-like luster. The rare error, however, carries a mirror finish, like looking into a copper-colored pool of glass. The relief of Lincoln's portrait appears almost sculptural, the details of his hair and coat sharply defined. Turn the coin, and you'll notice the fields shimmer differently from standard circulation pieces. Second, observe the edges. Many of these proof-struck errors have more refined, squared rims than the rounded ones of typical coins. Third, and this is crucial, never clean or polish the coin. Collectors prize authenticity over shine. One quick rub with a cloth could erase tens of thousands of dollars of value. If you suspect your coin might be one of these anomalies, seek a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. They hold the authority to authenticate and assign value. Their encapsulation, known as slabbing, can turn your find from pocket change into a recognized investment. But beyond the technicals lies something deeper, the psychology of collecting itself. Ask any seasoned numismatist why they do it, and they'll often pause before answering. It's not just about money. It's about connection, to history, to craftsmanship, to the fleeting nature of time. Each coin becomes a time capsule. The 1968 no-mint mark Lincoln, 1-cent coin doesn't just represent an error, it represents an era when machines were fallible, when human oversight could still birth miracles of rarity. And that sense of discovery, of holding something no one else has, is intoxicating. Collectors often describe the thrill as a form of treasure hunting for the modern age. No metal detector required, just patience, curiosity, and a keen eye. The idea that one could pluck $1 million coin from circulation decades after it left the mint taps into a primal American dream, finding fortune through persistence and luck. Here's a thought worth pondering. How many 1968 cents pass through our hands every year? Tens of millions remain in circulation, tucked into coin jars, coffee shop tills, or childhood piggy banks long forgotten. And among them, perhaps, one glimmers slightly differently, a small, copper-colored miracle hiding in plain sight. This possibility fuels a quiet obsession. It's why some collectors spend weekends sifting through rolls of cents from banks. It's why estate sale boxes are searched coin by coin, flashlight in hand. Because somewhere out there, a simple 1968 Abraham Lincoln 1 cent without a mint mark might just rewrite a collector's legacy. Of course, skeptics argue that most of these tales are exaggerated, that even the rarest variants are few and far between. And they're right, mostly. But every few years, one surfaces. And when it does, it validates the decades of searching. In 2023, a near-perfect 1968 no-mint mark specimen reportedly traded hands privately for a sum that stunned even industry veterans. Confidential sales like these rarely make headlines, but their echoes ripple through numismatic communities. It's these moments that remind us, true value often hides where the untrained eye sees none. Let's pause for a question. What's the real worth of a coin like this? Is it just the market price? $999,000, give or take? Or is it the story it carries? Because when you think about it, this isn't merely copper and zinc. It's the embodiment of American perseverance. Lincoln himself, etched eternally in profile, symbolizes resilience in the face of uncertainty. Perhaps that's why his coin, of all coins, continues to capture our imagination. When collectors invest in a piece like this, they're not just buying metal. They're preserving narrative, memory, and meaning. They're safeguarding a fragment of the nation's identity, and maybe that's the real lesson here. In a world obsessed with digital currencies and instant gratification, these small, round pieces of metal remind us of something lasting. Tangible wealth built on patience, knowledge, and history. To the investor, their assets. To the collector, their passions. To the historian, their proof that even errors can be beautiful. So the next time you find an old Lincoln cent rattling around your drawer, take a closer look. See the date, 1968. Look again at the space beneath the date where a mint mark might be missing. Feel the texture, study the sheen, and imagine the journey it's taken through hands and decades, because maybe, just maybe, you're holding something far greater than a 1-cent coin. Maybe you're holding a piece of forgotten American gold, hidden under a copper disguise, and perhaps, as the light catches its surface, you'll wonder, could this be the one? The $1 million Lincoln that defied all odds? That question, that spark of curiosity, that's where every great collector's story begins. So keep searching. Keep believing. And remember, in the world of rare coins, fortune doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers through the faint gleam of a 1968 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin, with no mint mark at all. Because the true treasure isn't only what we find, it's what we learn, what we preserve, and what we pass down. In your hands may rest not just a coin, but a legacy, a reminder that history rewards the observant, that wealth favors the patient, and that sometimes the smallest details can hold the greatest fortunes. That's not a rumor. It's one of those real, spine-tingling stories buried deep in American numismatic history, the kind that transforms an everyday pocket coin into a national treasure. And the reason behind it is not luck, but a breathtaking mistake, one that only the keenest collectors were sharp enough to recognize. The year is 1970. America is caught between eras, the last echoes of the 60s optimism fading, the Vietnam conflict raging, and the mint itself pushing through technological and procedural changes to modernize coin production. In Denver, mint workers struck billions of Lincoln 1-cent coins bearing the small D beneath the date. But among these countless copper coins, a few, just a handful, were born different. Different in a way that even the mint didn't notice. Somehow during production, the dies used to imprint the year had been created using a proof die from the San Francisco Mint, one that had been previously used to strike 1969 coins. That's right, a 1970 D Lincoln 1-cent overstruck on a 1969 S proof die. To the untrained eye, it looked normal, but under magnification, the date told a different story. A faint, ghost-like 1969 lurking beneath the 1970. Collectors call this phenomenon a doubled die obverse, but this was no ordinary doubling. This was a time capsule of error, a whisper of the past layered beneath the present. The first one discovered didn't make headlines immediately. It surfaced quietly, as they often do, through a collector sorting through a bag of mixed scents, looking for varieties. He noticed something off about the Liberty inscription, then the date. The numbers didn't line up quite right, as if two different years were fighting for the same space. Imagine his heart pounding when he realized he might be holding something that wasn't supposed to exist. Word spread among small numismatic circles, like a secret passed in hushed tones at coin shows and collectors' clubs. Eventually, the truth came out. This was an unintentional hybrid between Denver and San Francisco mint processes, a crossbreed coin that defied the mint's own protocols. But how could such a thing even happen? The answer lies in the imperfect nature of human oversight. During that era, the mint reused and repurposed dies, especially proof dies that had seen minimal wear. One of those proof dies, made in San Francisco and dated 1969, somehow ended up being repunched and used in Denver in 1970. When the mint worker added the new date, it didn't fully obliterate the old one, leaving a shadow, an echo of the previous year. It's poetic, isn't it? A tiny mistake, invisible to most eyes, transforming a mundane object into a historical relic. And that's what makes this story so intoxicating for collectors. It reminds us that value isn't always created by gold or rarity alone. Sometimes it's born from the smallest imperfection, a human error that survives the mechanical perfection of mass production. When one of these 1970 D over 1969 S Lincoln 1-cent coins surfaced at auction, it ignited something deep in the collector world. Prices shot up, rumors swirled. Could there be more of them hiding in plain sight, tucked away in old coffee cans, mason jars, or dusty drawers across America? For many, the idea that such a monumental treasure could still be resting in circulation was irresistible. It wasn't just about money. It was about discovery, about touching a piece of American history that almost wasn't supposed to exist. One collector once described finding an error coin as holding lightning in your hand. You can't plan it, and you rarely see it coming. But when it happens, you never forget it. Now let's step back and consider something curious. In the world of collectibles, scarcity often dictates value. But in numismatics, story amplifies it. A coin isn't merely a lump of metal. It's a frozen moment in time. The 1970 D over 1969 S Lincoln 1 cent represents the intersection of 2 years, 2 mints, and 2 human decisions that converged by accident. That's what drives collectors to chase it, not just because it's rare, but because it shouldn't exist at all. You see, in 1970, the mint was under enormous pressure to perfect its output. Public scrutiny was high, and advances in die-making technology promised to eliminate human error. But ironically, that same pursuit of perfection made the few mistakes that slipped through even more fascinating and infinitely more valuable. Think about the psychology for a moment. Every coin collector, whether novice or seasoned, carries the same spark, the hope of finding something extraordinary where others see only the ordinary. That hope is addictive. It's why grown men and women, successful professionals, spend hours hunched over magnifying lenses, examining copper surfaces for tiny variations, because deep down, every coin hunter is chasing a story. The next great discovery that connects them to history and, perhaps, to fortune. When the 1970 D era coin first hit major auctions, experts debated its authenticity. Some suspected tampering. Others insisted it was genuine. The debate itself only fueled the mystique. Eventually, authentication labs confirmed its legitimacy, and prices skyrocketed. In 2023, one pristine specimen with a clear double date visible even to the naked eye was valued at nearly $1 million. Imagine that. A coin worth a fraction of a cent to make, trading hands for more than most homes in America. At this point, you might be wondering, could I have one of these? It's a fair question, because history shows they do resurface. Every few years, another comes to light, pulled from an inherited collection, or found in a forgotten roll from a local bank. Collectors know that the 1970 D doubled die obverse coins exhibit certain telltale signs. Look for strong doubling on the word liberty, especially on the B and the E. The date itself will appear thickened, as if a shadow version of 1969 is ghosting beneath 1970. And if you're lucky enough to see that under magnification, even faintly, your heart will skip a beat, because that moment could mean your coin jar just turned into a life-changing discovery. Let's pause for a moment. What does it say about us that we can become so captivated by such tiny artifacts? Perhaps it's because coins are among the few man-made objects designed to outlive us. They pass silently through generations, carrying the fingerprints of history, from the hands of a Denver mint worker in 1970 to a cashier in Kansas, to a collector's velvet-lined tray 50 years later. Each coin tells a story of exchange, of value, of time itself. But the rare ones, like the 1970 D over 1969 S, tell a story of accident and destiny. And that's what makes them priceless. There's also a lesson here about opportunity. In the 1980s and 90s, thousands of collectors had these coins in their possession without realizing it. Some spent them, some sold them for face value, and yet, a few sharp-eyed individuals who studied numismatic literature, who attended shows and listened, turned small finds into life-changing wealth. It's a quiet reminder that in every collection, there might still be a hidden gem, a coin that doesn't reveal its secret at first glance. Today, that's why so many investors are returning to numismatics. Unlike digital assets or volatile stocks, rare coins carry tangible beauty, historical weight, and emotional legacy. They're not just collectibles, they're cultural heirlooms. The modern coin market reflects this shift. High-grade error coins, particularly those authenticated by top-tier grading agencies, have outperformed expectations in recent years. Collectors from Europe and Asia are now competing with American buyers for these historical mistakes, driving demand and, with it, value. What once sold for a few thousand now fetches 6 or 7 figures, and here's the quiet truth most newcomers don't realize. The biggest profits in numismatics often come not from coins everyone is talking about, but from the ones almost no one knows yet. That's why the story of the 1970D over 1969S Lincoln 1 cent remains a timeless lesson. It's proof that the extraordinary hides inside the ordinary, and that patient, knowledgeable collectors are the ones who uncover it. Picture this. Somewhere right now, a child is sorting through a jar of old coins inherited from a grandparent. Among them might be a 1970D cent that's been sitting untouched for decades. The copper's dulled, the edges softened, but the faint doubling remains, waiting to be rediscovered. That's how these stories begin, with curiosity, patience, and a touch of fate. And maybe that's the deeper magic of coin collecting. It's not just about wealth. It's about connecting with time, about holding a piece of America's story in your palm and realizing it has a secret it's waited half a century to tell. So the next time you come across an Abraham Lincoln 1 cent coin bearing that small D beneath the date of 1970, don't let your eyes glaze over. Take a closer look, tilt it under the light, because history hides in details, and sometimes what looks like a simple cent could be worth more than your car, your home, or even your retirement fund. That's not myth. That's the enduring truth of numismatics. In every handful of change, there might lie a story of fortune, error, and legacy, waiting for someone with the courage to look closer. Because the 1970D Lincoln 1 cent wasn't just a mistake. It was a masterpiece of imperfection, a reminder that even in a world built for uniformity, the rarest treasures are born when something goes beautifully wrong. So ask yourself, when was the last time you really looked at a coin? Because the next time you do, you might just find the past and your future staring right back at you, glinting in copper beneath a date that changed everything. It begins, as many great discoveries do, with something small, a coin, a simple reddish-brown piece of metal that most of us have overlooked 1,000 times. But imagine, one day, as you're sorting through a handful of spare change, your fingers brush against something slightly different, heavier perhaps. The surface smoother, the color just a shade off. You tilt it toward the light, and your heart skips a beat. A 1976 Denver Mint Lincoln 1 cent coin, an ordinary cent, or so it appears, whispering the quiet possibility of being worth close to $1 million. How can something that once bought a single piece of candy now command a value fit for a collector's legend? That's the enigma we're about to unravel. The year was 1976, America's bicentennial, a time when patriotism pulsed through every corner of the nation. The air smelled of fireworks, and coin presses from Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco worked day and night, churning out billions of coins to commemorate 2 centuries of independence. The Lincoln 1 cent coin, still bearing Victor, David Brenner's 1909 portrait of the 16th president, wasn't granted a special bicentennial design. Yet, hidden among the ordinary mintage from Denver, something extraordinary took shape. To the untrained eye, the 1976D penny looked just like every other copper coin of its time. But numismatics, as collectors know, isn't about what everyone sees. It's about what most people miss. Somewhere between die changes, metal planche variations, and quality control shifts at the Denver Mint, a handful of cents emerged that defied convention. Subtle misstrikes, double dies, off-metal compositions, tiny, nearly invisible clues that would decades later turn an overlooked cent into a treasure whispered about in collector circles. But what gives such a coin its astronomical worth? It's not just rarity, it's the story. Each remarkable coin carries a story layered with mystery, human error, and history. The 1976 D Lincoln cent's legend begins in the copper itself. In 1976, the mint still struck 1 cent coins primarily from 95% copper and 5% zinc. But as inflation eroded the metal's value, the cost of copper began to exceed the face value of the coin. The government debated composition changes, and experimental planches began circulating behind closed mint doors. Some coins struck on prototype or foreign metal planches escaped into circulation unnoticed. Imagine holding one of those. A coin not supposed to exist, a survivor of a moment when America's economy teetered on transition. Years later, collectors started to whisper about them. A few surfaced in small auctions, bearing unusual weights and distinct tones under magnification. Their discovery ignited speculation and value. A man in Kansas reportedly sold one for over $980,000, a sum that shocked even veteran numismatists. The coin's story became legend, perfect centering, razor-sharp details on Lincoln's coat and beard, and a striking luster unlike any other example known. Some experts believe the coin was struck on a bronze planchet intended for a foreign denomination. Others suggested it was a transitional strike error that slipped past inspection. Whatever the truth, it reminded collectors of a timeless lesson: wealth often hides in plain sight. Think about that. How many of us have handled hundreds of Lincoln cents in our lives, tossed them into jars, let them roll under car seats, or watched them vanish into vending machines? How many fortunes have passed through unsuspecting fingers? There's a quiet thrill in realizing that an unassuming coin from your childhood pocket change could buy a luxury home today. That thrill is what keeps collectors searching, the pulse of discovery, the whisper of legacy. But let's take a step deeper into the collector's psychology. For seasoned numismatists, value is never just about money. It's about connection. A coin is history you can hold, a frozen fragment of the economy, the art, and the politics of its era. The 1976 D cent doesn't just symbolize the bicentennial. It embodies a nation at a crossroads, between the proud copper age of Lincoln cents and the coming zinc era that began in 1982. Every nick, every shine, every microscopic anomaly tells part of that story. Here's a detail many overlook. Denver Mint coins carry a small D mark below the date on the obverse side. But some of the most valuable examples of the 1976 D Lincoln cent exhibit anomalies in that tiny letter. A doubled D, a misaligned punch, a repunched mint mark. To the untrained observer, these are imperfections. To the collector, they are signatures, artifacts of minting history that can transform a cent into a six-figure masterpiece. Some versions even exhibit double-die obverses, where Lincoln's profile appears subtly duplicated under magnification, like a ghostly reflection from another dimension. When light grazes the surface just right, it reveals that spectral twin. It's hypnotic. The market for such coins thrives on scarcity and story. When one coin like this sells for nearly $1 million, it sends ripples through the entire numismatic ecosystem. Suddenly, collectors everywhere begin re-examining their 1970s Lincoln cents under microscopes and LED lamps. Online forums light up. Could mine be the one? It's part hope, part obsession. But here's the fascinating part. Even if most searchers never find $1 million coin, the act of searching rekindles something ancient, the human desire to uncover hidden worth. It's the same instinct that drove gold miners westward, that made treasure maps irresistible, that fuels collectors to this very day. Now, let's touch on something more profound: the legacy aspect. For many American collectors in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, coins aren't just investments, they're heirlooms. When you leave behind a collection, you aren't just passing metal discs. You're passing stories, discipline, and curiosity. You're handing the next generation the tools to see value where others see none. Imagine a grandson opening a leather-bound album years from now, finding a 1976 D Lincoln 1-cent coin in pristine condition, reading your notes beside it. Found in change, 2025. Never underestimate what history hides. That moment of realization, that is legacy. But what separates the dreamers from the finders? Attention to detail. The rarest 1976 D cents are identified not by luck but by knowledge. Weight variations, 3.11 grams for bronze versus 2.5 for zinc, tell stories. The color tone, deep brown with flashes of red under tilt, can reveal the coin's past. Even the die cracks and fields tell you how the metal flowed during. Striking collectors who master this language of metal and time unlock opportunities others walk past. Here's a thought that might unsettle and inspire you. There are still undiscovered errors from the 1970s out there, coins no one has yet recognized for what they are. Every year, As estates are liquidated and old coin jars emptied, a few of these anomalies surface quietly, sold by the pound to dealers who may never notice what they had. That's how legends are born. Someone with patience and a magnifier sees what no one else did. But let's not romanticize it too much. There's an art to evaluating true worth. Professional grading remains the gatekeeper of million-dollar valuations. Organizations like PCGS or NGC authenticate, grade, and encapsulate coins to preserve their condition. A Mint State 67 1976D with a unique error could command an eye-watering price, while a similar coin with heavy wear might be worth only a few dollars. Condition, rarity, demand, these are the holy trinity of numismatic value. But passion, patience, and storytelling, those are the forces that make a collection come alive. So the next time you feel the weight of a Lincoln cent in your palm, pause. Feel the ridges. Study the date. Ask yourself, what stories does this tiny artifact hold? Because the beauty of numismatics isn't just in the coins that make headlines. It's in the endless potential of discovery. Somewhere out there, in a forgotten drawer, a 1976D Lincoln cent sits unrecognized. Its copper sheen dulled by decades of handling, yet its value quietly glowing beneath the surface. Someone, someday soon, will find it. And when they do, the world will once again remember that history rewards those who pay attention, and maybe that someone could be you. Because treasure, as history reminds us, doesn't always come in gold or silver. Sometimes it hides in a 1-cent coin struck during America's bicentennial, a coin born ordinary but destined to become extraordinary, a coin that whispers, "I was always worth more than you thought." The search continues, and as long as there are hands reaching into jars of change, there will be stories waiting to be discovered, tiny copper chronicles of a nation, a legacy, and the enduring belief that sometimes greatness hides in the smallest places. What could possibly make a single cent, minted by the millions, worth more than a luxury home? That's the mystery we're uncovering tonight. Because behind the quiet face of Abraham Lincoln lies one of America's most overlooked treasures. Born from a minting anomaly preserved by chance, and now hunted by those who understand that wealth doesn't always shine, it whispers. The year was 1978. The United States Mint was running full throttle. Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, all producing countless Lincoln 1-cent coins. The nation was tired of inflation, gas lines wrapped around city blocks, and a dollar that didn't stretch like it once did. People were thinking about survival, not saving copper coins. But here's the twist. In that same turbulent year, something curious happened inside the presses of the Philadelphia Mint. A batch of Lincoln 1-cent coins was struck without a mint mark. To most people, that detail seemed trivial, just another cent. But to the discerning eye of a numismatist, the absence of that tiny letter P or D below the date wasn't a mistake. It was a message, a quiet signal that something rare had slipped through. And as history would later reveal, rarity has its own gravity. So why is the no mint mark 1978 Lincoln 1-cent coin such a fascination today? First, it represents one of the last pure copper issues before the great composition change of the early 1980s. Each coin was 95% copper, metal that would soon be more valuable by weight than the coin's own face value. But more importantly, these Philadelphia-struck cents carried subtle variations, differences in die polish, rim thickness, and color toning that created microclasses of rarity few even knew existed. Collectors call them silent errors, the kind that slip through unnoticed for decades. Now, combine that natural rarity with perfect preservation, no scratches, full luster, flawless detail, and you have a coin that transforms from pocket change into a masterpiece of American minting history. Here's the astonishing part. In 2024, during a private numismatic auction, a pristine 1978 Philadelphia struck Abraham Lincoln. 1-cent coin, graded at the top end of the mint state spectrum, was reportedly valued near $983,000. Think about that for a moment, A coin that once jingled in a child's pocket now rivals fine art and real estate in market value. What drives that? It's not luck. It's psychology. Collectors chase stories as much as they chase metal. The thrill isn't just owning a coin, it's holding a fragment of American history, a conversation between human error and industrial precision. The absence of that mint mark isn't just a missing letter, it's a fingerprint of time. A reminder that perfection often hides within imperfection. If you've ever wondered why some coins become legendary while others fade into anonymity, it comes down to three forces: rarity, condition, and narrative. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln cent holds all three. Rarity, because so few were struck without identifying marks. Condition, because uncirculated survivors are almost mythical. And narrative, because this was the twilight of an era. Just 4 years later, in 1982, copper gave way to zinc. The sound of the coin changed, the weight changed, even the smell of the metal changed. To collectors, that moment was like watching a torch being passed from one generation of craftsmanship to another. So when someone holds a 1978 Lincoln 1-cent coin, untouched by time, they're not just holding copper, they're holding the last echo of America's industrial pride, when every coin carried a heartbeat. But here's where the story deepens. Not all no-mint mark coins are valuable. Many are common, mass-produced, ordinary. But a handful, those with the right die state, the right luster, the right lack of flaws, can command astronomical premiums. It's like fine wine. 2 bottles from the same vineyard, same year, but one matured perfectly, while the other didn't. Coin grading follows a similar logic. A single microscopic scratch, a dull spot in the strike, a hint of discoloration, and thousands of dollars disappear. But if you find one that gleams under magnification, crisp lines around Lincoln's coat, clean definition in the date, and a reverse shield that catches light like a mirror, you might just be holding the kind of cent that changes your life. Here's something most people don't know. The Philadelphia Mint didn't begin regularly using its P mark on Lincoln cents until 2017, so technically, every Philadelphia coin before then lacks a mint mark. But the intrigue with 1978 stems from its exceptional die varieties and preservation challenges. The production quality fluctuated heavily that year, and those differences are what seasoned collectors obsess over. It's the hunt for a perfect storm, a year, a die, a strike, and a survivor. And that hunt has created a secondary market where even mid-grade examples fetch surprising prices, because each one is a step closer to perfection. Now, pause for a moment and imagine the possibilities. You're sorting through an old jar of change, maybe one passed down from your parents or grandparents. The coins are dull, faded, sticky from time. You lift one out, 1978. No D, no S, no mint mark. You think nothing of it. But what if that single coin, worth a cent on paper, was the very specimen experts have been chasing? What if it's been waiting half a century for someone to notice it? That's the magic of numismatics. Wealth, hiding in plain sight, disguised as ordinary. And that's why collectors never truly look at coins. They study them. The 1978 Lincoln 1-cent coin story isn't just about money, it's about legacy. In every collection, there's a whisper of the past. Hands that once held these coins, voices that spoke over diner counters, pockets that carried them through wars, recessions, and dreams. Every coin is a witness. When you own a rare cent like this, you're not just acquiring metal, you're preserving a moment in America's memory. And the collectors who understand this, those who treat their coins not as commodities, but as artifacts, often find themselves building more than portfolios. They're building legacies that outlast them. But let's return to that million-dollar figure. Skeptics ask, can a 1-cent coin really be worth nearly $1 million? The answer lies in the laws of rarity and desire. When a coin crosses into myth, value becomes less about metal and more about meaning. Only one person can own the finest known example, just one. And in a world where high-net-worth investors are diversifying into tangible assets, art, watches, whiskey, rare coins have emerged as a class of their own. They're portable, historically backed, inflation-resistant, and emotionally charged. And in that small copper cent, You have all of those elements condensed into something smaller than a bottle cap. Now, here's a little-known truth about collectors, something few will admit out loud. They're not just chasing profit. They're chasing permanence. Every acquisition is a quiet rebellion against time. When you hold a coin struck nearly half a century ago, you're holding something that will outlive you. You can't say that about digital assets or paper investments, but a coin? It's eternal. That's why rare pieces like the 1978 no mint mark Lincoln 1 cent attract such emotion. They remind us that even the smallest, most ordinary things can become extraordinary when they endure. So where does that leave you? Maybe you've never checked your old coin jar. Maybe you have, but never looked closely enough. Or maybe you already know the rush of finding something rare, a flash of copper that makes your pulse quicken. Tonight's story is a reminder. Fortune often hides in the familiar. That 1978 cent you've ignored 100 times might just be the one that rewrites your story. Before you dismiss the idea, consider this. In the last decade, values for top-graded Lincoln 1 cent coins have surged far faster than inflation. The numismatic market, once niche, has become a playground for serious investors. Private equity groups and family offices now allocate small percentages of portfolios to certified coins. Why? Because they blend tangible history with measurable scarcity, something the modern economy can't replicate. A digital stock can vanish in a crash. A copper coin endures centuries, and that's why, for many, collecting has transformed from hobby to strategy, a way to turn passion into preservation. So, the next time you hear about a 1978 no mint mark Lincoln 1 cent coin selling for close to $1 million, don't just think of it as luck. Think of it as the perfect storm of rarity, craftsmanship, patience, and timing. Think of it as the whisper of American history, calling out to those who listen closely enough to hear it, and maybe, just maybe, that whisper will guide you to your own discovery. Because in the world of numismatics, treasure isn't buried. It's waiting, right there, in your pocket, your drawer, your grandfather's old jar of coins, waiting for someone who knows what to look for, waiting for you. Have you ever held something so ordinary, it almost begged you not to notice it? A dull copper coin tossed into a change jar, resting in the palm like a whisper from another time. Yet somewhere in America, one of these humble 1979 Abraham Lincoln 1 cent coins from the Denver Mint, the kind most of us spent without a second thought, has crossed into the realm of legend. A single coin, once worth only a cent, has been valued at nearly $978,000. How does a coin so common become a modern treasure? And why are seasoned collectors quietly calling the 1979 Denver Lincoln cent the sleeper of the century? Let's uncover the secret. The story begins in the late 1970s, an era of change for American coinage. Inflation was squeezing the U.S. economy, metal prices were rising, and the U.S. Mint faced a problem. The cost to produce copper coins was approaching their very face value. Behind closed doors, Mint officials debated whether the age-old copper cent could survive. Most citizens never knew how close America came to abandoning pure copper entirely. But for collectors, that tension created opportunity, because in times of change, mistakes happen. And in numismatics, mistakes are often miracles in disguise. The 1979 Abraham Lincoln 1 cent coin bore the familiar face sculpted by Victor David Brenner in 1909, honoring the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. But beneath that iconic portrait, some of the coins struck at the Denver Mint carried a subtle difference, an imperfection, a small deviation in the D mint mark that would one day ignite fascination and fortune. At first, no one cared. The coin was too new, too plentiful. Billions rolled out of the presses, and they jingled in pockets, passed through vending machines, and vanished into piggy banks. But a few attentive collectors noticed something odd. A doubling effect on the mint mark, a tiny shift in detail, and an unusual luster compared to other strikes. What they found wasn't just a variation. It was a gateway into one of the most intriguing mysteries of modern U.S. coinage. Consider this. The Denver Mint in 1979 produced over 4.1 billion Lincoln cents. To think that one, perhaps two, of those coins could reach near $1 million valuations seems impossible. Yet rarity is never about numbers alone. It's about survival, condition, and discovery. Imagine a flawless coin that somehow escaped circulation, a specimen preserved by sheer accident, perhaps sealed in a mint roll and forgotten in a drawer for decades. When rediscovered, its surfaces gleamed with original red copper brilliance, untouched by the wear of time. Combine that state of perfection with a distinctive mint mark anomaly, and you have the ingredients of a numismatic legend. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have authenticated and certified high-grade examples of the 1979 Denver Lincoln cent, but only a handful have reached the top-tier grades. MS 68 Red, the level where perfection borders on art. In that narrow upper echelon, competition is fierce. Wealthy collectors, investors, and even institutions bid passionately to secure these trophies. And that's where value transcends logic. A coin once tossed across a diner counter can become a six-figure masterpiece. But why does this happen? Why would someone pay nearly $1 million for a 1-cent piece? The answer lies in collector psychology. For many, it's not just about metal and mintage, it's about connection. A coin is history you can hold, a fragment of the nation's journey. The Lincoln cent, in particular, embodies resilience, the story of a man born in poverty who rose to lead a fractured nation. That symbolism resonates deeply with American investors seeking not just profit but legacy. There's also the allure of the hidden treasure. Every collector dreams of being the one who finds the overlooked rarity, the sleeping coin that eluded experts. It's part logic, part romance. That dream fuels the modern coin market more than any economic index. And lately, the market is shifting in ways that favor these dreams. Over the past decade, the world of rare coin investment has transformed. As traditional markets fluctuate, high-net-worth individuals are turning to tangible assets, gold, silver, and collectible currency, to preserve and grow their wealth. Coins, unlike digital investments, carry a permanence that feels safe, almost timeless. In 2024, several major auction houses reported record-breaking prices for small-denomination U.S. coins. The key driver? Exceptional condition and provenance. When a coin tells a story, when it carries both history and perfection, it becomes irresistible. That's what happened with the 1979 D. Lincoln cent. The specimen that reached the astonishing value of $978,000 wasn't merely well-preserved. It was immaculate. It represented not just scarcity, but excellence. Under magnification, its surfaces revealed an almost mirror-like field and sharply struck details, a near-perfect alignment of die and plancher that only a few coins ever achieve. But here's the twist. Most don't know. In the late 1970s, the Denver Mint experimented quietly with refining its die-making process. Slight inconsistencies between master dies and working dies occasionally produced minor double-die obverse varieties, and when these anomalies intersected with the mint mark punching process, still done by hand in some cases, it created subtle deviations. These tiny errors are what we now chase, decades later. They're reminders that perfection often hides within imperfection. And for collectors, that paradox is irresistible. So when one of these 1979 Denver cents surfaced, graded at the highest level known, its sale sent ripples through the entire numismatic community. Articles were written, rumors spread, and suddenly everyone was checking their jars of old pennies again. Ask yourself this. How many of us have carelessly spent a fortune without realizing it? That's the haunting magic of coin collecting. Every time we handle change, we're touching history and sometimes destiny. Somewhere in the noise of everyday transactions, rare treasures circulate quietly, waiting for eyes that truly see, and this realization changes something inside collectors. It transforms the hobby into a calling. The deeper you go, the more you discover that coins aren't just objects, they're storytellers. Each one carries the fingerprints of its time, the political shifts, the technological experiments, the human errors that reveal more than perfection ever could. The 1979 D. Lincoln cent tells us about a mint in transition, an economy under pressure, and a country searching for stability. It's a small copper emblem of American persistence, stamped with Lincoln's steady gaze, as if reminding us that value often hides where others see none. And that's why today, more and more investors are blending passion with portfolio. Rare coins have become not just collectibles but generational assets. They offer both financial growth and emotional satisfaction, two forces rarely found in the same object. Those who recognize this early, those who learn to read the patterns of scarcity, strike quality, and historical context, are the ones building quiet empires in the numismatic world. But here's something even more intriguing. Experts predict that transitional era coins, like those produced between the late 1970s and early 1980s, are entering their prime appreciation window. As younger generations grow nostalgic for the analog past, tangible relics of that era are gaining cultural value. Combine that with the dwindling number of mint state survivors, and you have a perfect storm for future price escalation. So, when you hear that a 1979 D Lincoln cent sold for close to $1 million, don't think of it as an isolated event. Think of it as the first signal, a sign that the market is evolving, that collectors are beginning to revalue modern-era coins once dismissed as too new. What's next? Perhaps the 1982 transitional copper-zinc cent or the 1969 S double die may surge again. Or maybe a discovery awaits in a forgotten bankroll, hiding in plain sight in someone's attic. Here's a thought worth holding on to. In coin collecting, you're never just chasing money, you're chasing time. Every piece is a fragment of the nation's heartbeat, preserved in metal. When you invest in that, you're not just acquiring wealth, you're curating the American story. So next time you find a 1979 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin bearing the Denver Mint mark, look closer. Examine its color, its strike, its minute details. Could the D be slightly misplaced or doubled? Is the luster untouched? Could you be holding one of the rarest survivors of its kind? Most won't. Most will spend it, dismiss it, or overlook it. But for the few who pay attention, those with patience, knowledge, and intuition, the reward can be life-changing. There's an old saying among coin historians: the greatest fortunes in numismatics aren't found, they're recognized. The 1979 Denver Lincoln cent that reached a $978,000 valuation didn't appear out of thin air. It was simply waiting for someone to see it for what it truly was. Not a coin, but a key. A key to the past, to opportunity, to legacy. And maybe that's the real message hidden within this story. In an age obsessed with digital wealth, the rare coin reminds us that true value never disappears. It only hides until rediscovered. So keep looking, keep learning, because the next extraordinary find might already be in your possession, resting quietly in a jar, waiting for you to notice. And when you do, when you feel that spark of realization, that connection between history and destiny, you'll understand what collectors have always known, that sometimes the smallest coin can carry the greatest story.